How's it going, guys? It's still here for some fresh SRW content. I figure since the next OG might take a while, it would be the best time to discuss the upcoming story, ideas, mechs, as well as review what we know so far in the OG series. We will be expanding from the obvious plot setups to the most subtle hints. Anyway, let's start. So in this video, we'll be covering the current stance and roles of the Balsham series in the OG timeline, specifically focusing on Ingram and Yuzeth, and even including Cobray's periodical cameos throughout the games. Before time diving into the finer details, I will briefly recap on what the Balshams are all about. The Balsham series is an army of Belmerian-bred clones, genetically based from Yuzeth Gozo, one of the main antagonists of the OG series. There are currently 6 relevant Balshams introduced in the OG timeline so far, which I will also cover indefinitely in different videos. The first of the Balsham series is the original clone of Yuzeth, Aleph Balsham, Aleph Hebrew for Alpha or the First. He also aliases as Ingram Pliskin when he penetrated the Federation forces. Granted, Ingram was the first of the clones, he is considered as the originator, meaning that the following clones would be based after him, the original clone. Respectively, this makes the next clones to be ultimately Ingram clones. You getting confused yet? Well, one way to sum things up is to describe him as the prototype clone of Yuzeth, which I would arguably say is the eldest brother, or most superior, because we know that prototypes are kings, at least in Mecha. After the originator, the following clones would cumulatively appear in the series until the latest entry of Moon Dwellers. The ones that showed in the OG-verse includes Bet Balsham, which we know as Villetta of the SRX team. Then there's Gimel Balsham, known as Calico MacCready, Dalet Balsham, known as Spectre MacCready, and Ayan Balsham. These 3 are part of the Balmar's Golar Golem squad, a reconnaissance assault squad serving different planets. Of the 3 Golar Golem clones, we have been eyeing on Ayan Balsham the most because of his precursor role in Cobray Gordon's story. Although things might not be so simple in the OG timeline. With the biggest Balsham reveals in the last segment of 2nd OG, which is Ing and Amra, we could expect a lot of changes and plot twists moving forward. The addition of Ing's plot relevance could change the Balsham plot hierarchy. In Alpha 3, Cobray Gordon overthrew the Gozos as the symbol of the Balsham. In a sense, he fulfilled Yuzeth's goal to vanquish the Balmar royal family. In OG, however, Ing might have to take on that mantle, granted he is the byproduct of Yuzeth's ambition, which ties him directly to the Gozos. Moving back on focus, let us first establish Cobray's role in the multiverse to better understand the connection between Ingram, Yuzeth, Ayan, and Cobray. At the end of Alpha 3, upon defeating the Spirit Emperor, Cobray leaves the Alpha timeline and travels the multiverse as a time diver. This title was entrusted to him by Ingram as he gets completely assimilated into Ayan, granting him power and forming the Dis-Astronagant. In layman's terms, Cobray is the combination of Ingram and Ayan. The role entrusted as a time diver is to sustain the karmic balance of causality, which manifested in both Ingram and Yuzeth. He regulates it so by preventing other timelines Ayan Balsham from being assimilated by Ingram, allowing a repeat of the birth of Cobray Gordon in that timeline, and consequently a time diver byproduct, which would create a paradoxical existence. This is probably why Cobray cannot enter the OG timeline to date, because the factors that he mentions would contradict his existence, because remember, there could only be one time diver in the multiverse, which also means only one existing Astronagant or Dis-Astronagant. These factors I would assume were disappearing the moment Ingram's fate changed with his failure to free himself from the Gozo shackles, at least until his final moments, which ultimately robbed him of his original destiny. In this line of thought, it could possibly be argued that this fate put him into a different track once his OG soul emerges to take over a Balsham, if they so choose to stay faithful with that adaptation. This could be analyzed when he mentioned his Nefesh, or soul, was free from his flesh before he died against the Steel Dragon squad, during the final battle in the White Star. So did he really die there? A question that remains unanswered for about 20 years now. Or maybe there is another way to retcon him existing or his OG self existing, still even after that death. Furthermore, Yuzeth mentioned in the final battle during the Sealing War that both him and Ingram are the only ones he knows that can transcend time. He describes it as Kalpaic reincarnation or something like that, a breach in life cycle that allows for an entity's memories of the previous life to be accumulated into the next one. If we tie this to the idea of having only one time diver, the only way Cobray could enter the OG without existential distortions is to completely eliminate Ingram's destiny-tied soul, or Nefesh as he describes it again. To entertain this idea, Cobray could have entered the OG timeline after Ingram perished, but since Yuzeth was still around, the Kalpaic reincarnation of OG Ingram could be replaced by an entering Cobray, which would reset causality back to normal track. In this theory, Yuzeth has to die first in order for the OG timeline to be different than any other. But who knows, there could be more factors that Cobray refers to when it comes to not being able to enter, or entering at the best interest of the universe. Ingram and Yuzeth's past lives were integrated on their previous game inclusions, including Superhero Operations and Super Robot Wars Alpha, although things change in the Alpha timeline. Ingram assimilates with Ayan and becomes a time diver, while Yuzeth carries over to his next life cycle. While the possibility of manifesting an OG Cobray is up there, the role of the Alpha timeline time diver is to prevent those from occurring. Since the idea of causality is absolute, I do not buy the idea that the Alpha timeline is alone to change the entire cycle, so there could be some things that would be explained in the future games that would explain why the Alpha timeline is special for Cobray to manifest and become the time diver that manages the entire multiverse. Going back to the Kalpaic reincarnation, until the time was right, both Ingram and Yuzeth would remember their memories and cause themselves to awaken their past selves. Yuzeth managed to reach the stage in the OG timeline during the Sealing War when he summoned the Adamantron through different sources of power, including absorbing the Gan Eden and AI-1, and managing to operate the Cross-Gate Paradigm system. On the contrary, Ingram only managed to awaken his past memories before perishing against the Steel Dragon Squad in the final battle at the White Star. Yuzeth himself mentioned this, so we can assume that he managed to change Ingram's fate, but is it for the ultimate better? If I am understanding this correctly, Ingram's and Yuzeth's death would allow Cobray to enter the OG timeline, because these two entities are what maintains the Kalpaic reincarnation that prevents a previously considered Ingram entity known as our Alpha 3 Cobray from entering a timeline with an Ingram tied to that reincarnation concept. Yeah, that's a lot to digest, and sometimes I think it doesn't even make any sense, but that's what I think. To sum it up, Yuzeth managed to alter Ingram's Kalpaic reincarnation but was not able to manage to break free from it himself because of the strongest variable he created, which is Ing. Whether Ing is tied to this Kalpaic reincarnation is a question for another day, and is something that we might want to discuss in the future. There are many ways to interpret this, but until the next game sheds light to Cobray's entrance to the OG timeline, we can only hope to speculate. The OG lore can get really complicated at times, so anything could happen once they jumpstart the Balmar War, and it's interesting when the database has something to do with how that's gonna play out. Anyways, that's it for this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more of these videos.